Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bigfoot Society podcast. We've got a fantastic episode for you today. We've got the Seth Breedlove here. Well, not here, but, he's over the magic of Skype. And you'll be hearing from him in a little bit. We'll talk about all sorts of cool stuff, and you'll be getting a little bit of new info about some of films he's got coming out. But really fantastic discussion about Bigfoot, and I do say that word fantastic about 10,000 times during the interview. So, but first, we want to hear from one of our listeners, Andy. So let me play this real quick. He's going to share what his favorite historical encounter or story about Bigfoot was. So let's check it out.
Hello, Jeremiah. This is Andy from the Bigfoot Gumbo podcast. My favorite historical account of Bigfoot is the 1941 Ruby Creek encounter with Jeannie Chapman and her children. It's my favorite because it occurred 17 years before the name Bigfoot was used in newspapers and 26 years before the Patterson-Gimlin film, giving this story a lot of credibility. Thanks.
Thanks again, Andy, for sharing that favorite Bigfoot encounter you had. Again, if you want to share a message with Bigfoot Society as well, stick around. You'll hear later on in the show how you can do that. Again, check out Andy. He's got his own podcast too. Bigfoot Gumbo is what it's called, as you just heard. And pretty good stuff, so go ahead and check him out there. Let's get into the main event tonight. We're going to have our interview with Seth Breedlove next, so get ready. Everyone, this is our interview with Seth Breedlove, and we got some questions for him about all the Bigfoot stuff he does for the podcast, and he's got some questions along the way as well. Seth, do you mind if I have you go ahead and introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Yeah. I'm Seth Breedlove. I run, I don't know. I never know how to put it. I help run Smalltown Monsters, which is an independent film production company based in Wadsworth, Ohio, that I operate with my wife and probably like 3 or 4 friends as far as like the core group of guys, and then there's a much larger group of people that are involved in various, apparently that are involved in various capacities, kind of based around the country. So it's a completely, I would say it's like a completely autonomous independent production company that is slowly growing across 4.5 years, and we make mostly documentaries focused on the paranormal and cryptids and unexplained subjects.
Very cool. Seth is definitely being humble. If you haven't checked out any of his documentaries, they are fantastic. I myself am a super fan of On the Trail of Bigfoot. Man, that was fantastic.
Cool,
and Terror in the Skies, I was a PA on that with my buddy Andrew up here in Iowa. We did some interviews for Seth. But man, they're just getting better and better, dude. Like,
awesome, thanks. Yeah, the On the Trail of was weird because I could not. I mean, going into it, I had told my wife I thought that was going to be the one that like killed us, because
killed you for
just
real,
like,
or
killed. Well, yeah, that, but like also just killed their reputation, because I was I like that. Like it was called like a solo filmmaking experiment or whatever, which isn't entirely true. I mean, there were people involved in the shooting of On the Trail of Bigfoot to an extent. Like we had, when I went to PA, like I had someone holding an extra camera, so I was actually able to be in some of the shots. Although you'd be shocked at like how many of the scenes that I'm in are really just like repeated shots just from different angles.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but yeah, no, the editing of that was what I was convinced was just gonna do us in, because I couldn't.
No, dude.
I edited the whole thing I mean, I edit all our movies myself, but I edited all of On the Trail of Bigfoot by myself, and it was done in no joke, about a 6 to 8 week period of frantic editing where I had thought it would just be a very sort of breezy edit, and I don't know why that is, because there were 22 people interviewed. There's multiple locations and all that kind of stuff. But I really thought, well, I don't have to deal with like effect shots and all that. And what it turns out is like those effect shots are great because like they're just coverage, and most of the time the artist has already done all the work, so I don't really have to do squat with that. But with this, it was trying to find trying to make everything fit together. So every episode of On the Trail of Bigfoot was edited like multiple times. Like I would do a cut and then realize I hated it, and then recut it and then realize that didn't work, and then recut it again. So like every episode, with the exception of episode 5 and I believe 6, were edited like 3 or 4 times, and then just to get them working, because I don't do like any kind of pre-planning, which is probably pretty obvious, honestly, if you're watching. I don't do any like pre-planning, and the stories really come together in the edit. There's a lot of like just shooting by the seat of our pants, and then hopefully we can find the through line for everything. Momo changes all that because the whole thing's scripted.
Oh my gosh, I'm so pumped for Momo. You have no idea. Like, just to see Cliff and Bobo in those shots where you have them like dressed up as like, I don't even know, like if it's cowboys or like posse or what.
Cliff is if you look at like the actual photos of who they're playing, that is what those dudes kind of how they dressed, which is funny because it's Missouri. But yeah, Cliff's playing Chief Ward. Chief Shelby Ward, who's a real guy, and that was one of the dudes that led. He was the Louisiana sheriff, and he actually led the posse, one of the posses up the hill to look for Momo on Star Hill. And Bobo is playing like an amalgamation of multiple deputies that were around at that time, and and then like the Momo we haven't talked too much about, and very purposely, like we're trying to keep all the focus right now on Terror in the Skies because it has an uphill battle given the subject matter.
Totally.
So we're kind of like really pushing Terror, but I'm dying to promote Momo, because as soon as people start seeing trailers, and Lyle's sort of Lyle's place in the movie is very different from what we've done before, because he's playing sort of a late night horror host. Who's introducing audiences to this unreleased movie from the 1970s called Momo the Missouri Monster, and then the movie will segue back and forth between this like over the top 1970s drive-in movie called Momo and the actual documentary portion of the movie. So we interviewed we interviewed like the real Shelby Ward's daughter, and like people like that. So it's weird. It's like Rashomon. By way of like Bigfoot and Grindhouse movies from the 70s. It's bizarre.
What was I listening to the other day? This is terrible. No, it was you. You had that episode about Bigfoot exploitation movies. Was that you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, that was such an amazing episode. There's like, man, I gotta watch a lot of episodes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Most of that's Mark. Yeah, most of that's Mark though, because like I come through with like the typical. Like, oh, check out Legend of Boggy Creek and Creature from Black Lake. Mark pulled that, I can't even remember the name of it. There's this movie he talked about that was like directed by Robert W. Morgan. That's a 1970s Sasquatch exploitation movie with Robert Morgan in it, and he directed it. And I can't think of what it's called, but it's horrendous. But kind of good at the same time. It's weird, but I watched it recently. It is a weird movie.
Crazy.
Having said that, I can't remember the title of it, so this is pointless. But yeah, we are really like stoked about Momo, and anyone who's into our stuff will probably have some hesitance when the trailers and stuff come out, because I think it's going to look like it's almost going to look as if we have made everything that we have always kind of ranted and raved against, like all the over the top dramatizations and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then the trailer is going to come out, and you're going to see this trailer for this movie that looks like we have made that, like a way over the top dramatization of real events. And it
Seth
kind of
jumps
is.
the shark.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, like we kind of, it is also like quintessential small town monsters. I have a feeling this is going to be like for STM fans, like people who are really into STM.
Yeah.
This will be a project that they kind of claim as their favorite.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm excited for it, dude. Like, okay, so I was plug for you guys. I was one of the Kickstarters, and so I've had access to like, On the Trail of Bigfoot, Terror in the Skies for quite a while, and I totally forgot that like Terror in the Skies it's not even out yet, right?
Right, comes
Yeah.
out Friday.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so listeners, next time Seth has a Kickstarter, get on that. I mean, just today I got the signed DVD of Terror in the Skies plus a cool little sticker as well in the mail.
Yeah,
But,
and there's
dude,
still
it's
like
so cool.
there's still all kinds of stuff coming for like backers, and we're gonna do some cool stuff with the Momo DVD. I'm thinking of doing like
Nice.
a 2-disc set, because we have the way this will be the first time I've talked about any of this, but like the way I'm editing the sort of like drive-in narrative film
Mhm.
is it is literally being edited start to finish as its own separate movie.
Okay.
And then I'll be chopping that up, and it'll be edited naturally into, the actual full length like documentary, and it'll
Nice.
flow really well. But there will be an existent start to finish cut of the narrative. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that narrative film on the DVD. So anyone that wants to watch like the narrative film without to see
Okay.
what it would be like if you actually saw that movie, you'll be able to watch it
Dude, I love that.
the
That's
DVD.
so cool.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
it's crazy. It's like it's a family drama mashed up with like, the Legend of Boggy Creek style sort of docudrama thing.
Mhm.
The Legend of Boggy Creek sort of spearheaded.
Totally.
And then like just the most ridiculous over the top kind of like Sasquatch exploitation stuff from the
Very
70s.
cool.
It really does have like, we set out to make something that would feel like it was a movie made in the 70s that no one's ever seen, and I think like we successfully pulled it off. And like the Bobo cliff scenes are by far like those posse scenes are the best scenes in the entire movie, and
Gosh.
it's really crazy. And there's some super quotable lines.
Please say there's bloopers. Are there bloopers?
Oh, there's so many bloopers. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I might, we're definitely gonna have to do that for the.
Yep. You have
for
to have a blooper reel, dude.
Yeah, and in the beginning, like the movie opens with this very like 70s, almost like slasher scene.
Oh wow.
Which is sort of a recreation of I can never remember what their name. Joan Mills and Mary Ryan. It might be Mary Ryan and Joan Mills. Either way, they were picnicking and they encountered Momo supposedly 1 year prior to the Harrison family encounter. So this is like a retelling of that, only in like 1970s slasher style.
Okay.
And then it ends. So it begins with that movie, and then the movie ends with this insane posse sequence is sort of one of the big moments of the entire movie.
Dude, I love insane posse sequences. Like have you heard of the Van Meter Visitor? You've heard of the Van Meter Visitor.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So the end of that is like they posse up and they chase it over to the mine at the edge of Van Meter, and like the Des Moines Register is like, and they shot enough to blow it straight to hell.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine like that posse scene? Like, that's legit. Yeah.
That's what this is, because like I grew up sort of loving the idea of like the posse, and this is kind of that. So
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Also, listeners, and if you care, Seth, that's cool too. But plug for the Van Meter Visitor Festival. It's in this fall, and we have Linda Godfrey coming down this time, and she is going to be debuting her new documentary DVD about panthers, like panther cryptids.
Oh yeah.
So It'll
Yeah,
be fantastic. We're
she had told me about
excited, dude.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
really cool.
But it'll be the first time she's shown it, so good stuff.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, wanted to go back, loop around, and on the trail of Bigfoot. So first off, when I first started watching that, it took me right back to when I was a little kid, and I was watching In Search of with my dad, and I was like, man, like this is really cool to be a part of this because like just those drone footage shots you have,
Hmm.
along with the music, fits great. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Specifically about like um, the Area X episode I love because I wasn't expecting you to take it in a direction for like conservation,
Hmm.
but it worked extremely well. Like
Cool.
that was fantastic.
Yeah.
What was what was the craziest like when you look back at your time on Area X or being down there? And I know you had like pretty bad migraines, right? I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had migraines for. We got in there
uh,
on like a geez, I can't remember. We were only in there for 2.5 days. I mean, it was such a short period of time,
okay.
and in that entire time, I never got rid of the headache. Like that,
Jeez.
like I had one of these migraines pretty much the entire time we were in there. So
What do you think? What's the besides that? What's the craziest like story you have out of Area X?
from my time in there, or
Yeah,
just
just
like
from
their
your time,
history.
like anything
Yeah. I
really
mean,
cool you
from
can share.
I mean, the craziest thing that happened isn't even necessarily the. I mean, it probably be the in terms of like the weirdest thing that happened. It was everything that led up to the to the rock throw and the
Oh yeah, yeah.
and the scream we heard that night. But but prior to that, there was all sorts of strange stuff because of the fact that Brian and Daryl were call blasting. And when I say strange stuff, I don't mean that like it was strange like paranormal activity. Like they were call blasting Gregorian chants.
What?
Yeah, like, and it's super creepy. Like, cause you're in this place where it's really quiet. There isn't a ton of like animal noise or cricket noise or any of that kind of stuff in there. So it's very, very sort of quiet, and you've just
Wow.
got these Gregorian chants call blasting out across this
Yep.
valley, and it's pitch black, and you can't see your hand in front of your face, and and eventually Daryl started like calling back and forth with an owl.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and it
Very
was just
cool.
it was a really
Yeah.
bizarre sequence that led up to that rock throw. But I mean, the rock throw, what you know. So for listeners, the event that happened is it was like 2:30 in the morning. It's our last night there, and I was going to I had to go to bed because like I had this migraine. I wanted to stay up and just try to hopefully capture some sort of evidence of something,
Sure.
in the
Yeah.
woods. But I was call blasting, or they were call blasting, and like finally the headache got me, and I decided I was going to go to bed. So we went to sleep around midnight, and at 2:30 a.m. I still hadn't managed to fall asleep, and I was just laying there with this pounding headache. But I just started to
Oh
kind of
man.
doze off,
Oh.
and it was about that moment that this like ear piercing like
Oh.
crash happened,
Yeah.
and it was clearly like a rock hitting the roof of what they call the hooch, which is like this metal outbuilding.
Yep. I
So,
remember seeing that. Yep.
yeah, so the rock crashes into the roof of that building, and pretty much as soon as it does, there's no real silence following it. I mean, it was almost instantaneous. And I mean, my eyes shoot open, Adam's shoot open. We're both looking at each other. We're still laying down, and then this whoop happens, and it was. I always say it was like a John Wayne movie, the stereotypical like Apache warrior in a John Wayne movie or
Oh
something like
man.
that. It was just like this whoop,
Wow.
and then it was followed by this laughter, like really weird, like chimp-like laughter. The closest thing we found that it sounded like was like a gibbon sort of laughter.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
so
Yep.
and all that happens in the span of like 27, 20, 30 seconds, something like that. It's like it's very abrupt, and it's over. And so in terms of like what was the thing that happened to me in there that's the most memorable, I mean, it was that. But it's really hard for me to just like distinguish one event because there was so much going on in there that you kind of get to the point where you have to tune stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I heard the Ohio howl while we were in there at one point,
Oh,
and
wow.
super distant,
Really?
like way distant. Like I was hearing something,
Man.
like you were hearing a memory, or it was bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, it was way off in the distance.
Wow.
We heard talking on the road one night. We had not night.
Okay.
It was during the middle of the day. We were walking out the road that sort of leads out of Area X.
Yeah.
And there was we got like 200 yards outside of base camp, and we're out on the dirt road, and we heard what sounded like a man and a woman talking in the road behind us. But not far from us, and it was like sort of, you couldn't distinguish what was being said. And we thought it was Bob and Kathy back at base camp, so we radioed back, and they hadn't been talking at all.
Oh, man.
So we started sort of trying to replicate what we had heard, and they had heard it too. That's why they were radioing us. They wanted to know if we were talking on the road. And so we started talking as loud as we could, and they couldn't hear. They couldn't hear us, and we couldn't hear them. So
Sure.
it was kind of crazy. Hey, I have a question though for you.
Yeah, what's up?
If I have to pause for a second, is that cool? There's apparently a dead baby bunny in my backyard that my wife needs me to get out of.
Yeah, take care of that. I will talk to my listeners for a few minutes. No problem, man. Yeah.
This isn't live, is it? It is.
No, this is being recorded.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. If
So I guess I could edit it out too if I need, but you're good.
All right. Yeah. Just give me like 2 seconds. I'll get it out of here.
Yeah, you got it. All right, so let's take a little time out where Seth takes care of business. Talk about the one Bigfoot sighting that Des Moines has seen. It's Des Moines, Iowa. A few years ago, down by the river, in the snow, they saw Bigfoot tracks. Pretty crazy. I know. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Here's the thing. Also, next time Seth has a Kickstarter, you guys really need to get on that. Just because, I've had 2 DVDs come so far. There's going to be a hat, there's going to be a shirt. It's going to be really cool. And plus, Seth has been really humble so far with how he's been talking, but he's really paving the way for the next generation of really monster hunters. So you can put your money towards something that is pretty cool. And I mean, just imagine being back in the 80s and being able to put up the money for In Search Of, and how much of a difference that has caused. And just think about like the documentaries that he makes. It's gonna make a huge difference for the future. People like you think of your top dogs in cryptozoology right now. You think of like Jeff Muldrum and Lauren Coleman. Not to say that they're super old, but they are starting to get up in years. But so am I. But the next generation's got to get that cool stuff in order for them to get pumped up. Hey, what's up, man?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So in X, like every single thing, there was just constant. There's stuff that like I don't even remember.
Man, that's crazy.
Happening. Like there was an incident when we were walking and the smell was following us, and it was really bizarre. Yeah, really bizarre kind of incident. But I mean, the entire trip started off within 3 hours of getting in there. It was, when Daryl sort of started telling us that he was scoping in a Bigfoot, with his gun. So
that part that blows my mind. Like when I saw, like, it was like he's got one in his sights. Like, that's phenomenal, and like, but it's like you got to do research into these guys and like how serious they take this. Like these guys are scientists. It's like they are hardcore,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't want to. It would be disingenuous if I said anyone that was in there with us was a scientist, but there are definitely
Okay.
biologists and ecologists and all kinds of people like that in the group. The group that was in there with us um, was Kathy, who was she's a tribal relations manager for the
Okay.
Stanislaus National Forest, and then there's Bob Strand was like an EMT and firefighter paramedic, and then Brian, who runs an extremely successful marketing firm. And I mean, everyone in that group is someone.
Very cool. Very cool. Man, awesome. Let me look at my. Oh, yeah. So I have kind of a list here. So there was a big gathering just a few days ago or a week ago out in Pennsylvania, like the Bigfoot camping thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything cool to share from that, or anything
Um,
awesome that happened?
you
Maybe
know,
like really new news or whatever.
there was actually a track found on like Saturday night that was in an interesting place. It's just very difficult to, you're at a camping
Right.
adventure that's entirely focused around Bigfoot. See,
Mhm.
anything that happens, you have to take with a grain of salt, obviously. But it was found by a dude I know who I know he wouldn't have faked it or anything. His little
Right.
daughter, actually, his daughter found it, and they casted it, and it was an interesting track, and cast.
Yeah.
There was a fox with no fur that was seen on the dodge across the road one night, so that's
Oh,
kind of cool
weird.
too.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I don't think there was anything. The only thing is like they're on the ridge, like they're on the Chestnut Ridge, so
Oh, totally. Yeah.
there's all kind of weird stuff out there,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah. So you
anytime,
forgot like your UFO stuff. Like, I
yeah.
mean, another great documentary, Seth. For real, Chestnut
Oh yeah,
Ridge.
yeah,
Big
yeah.
time.
That's one of my favorites actually of ours.
Oh,
But
yeah. So good.
yeah, there was nothing I would necessarily think was very squatchy activity, but I didn't go out late at night either. So I know
Gotcha.
I did see that Eric Altman said there was like a loud sort of grunt that happened outside of his cabin last night, actually at
Wow.
the campground. But this is, I mean, that event takes place. It's literally on the Chestnut Ridge, so you're sort of
Oh,
in the heart of it all. And Ohio Pile area, which is where they, that's the closest town to where they are, actually that's where the sighting that is talked about in like episode 4.
hmm.
um that's the one where the lady like shot at the thing,
Yep.
and it that was on her porch and it like disappeared. That's Ohio Pile.
Oh, wow.
So
Crazy.
that'd be right near where we were.
Dude, Pennsylvania is nuts. Like, I grew up in the Northeast, and like, Pennsylvania gets wild. Like, people don't realize once you get out there, it's wooded, dude. So I want to take a few minutes out just to share something with you. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. So let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a lot more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So just download the app and make a podcast today. It's that easy. All right, back to the action.
Yeah, there's some spots there in PA. The thing about PA that's it's a lot like Ohio in the fact that the undergrowth can get so thick you can't even move into it, But the leaf canopy and then sort of the way the mountain, it's so rugged and mountainous in some spots. It almost feels like you're being engulfed by the forest. It's disturbing in a way.
That's crazy, man. Crazy stuff. Um, let's go over a few. I got how. First off, how are we doing for time? We good?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Cool, cool.
I
All
can't
right.
do anything. There's like my dog got this baby bunny. It's just like chilling in
Oh,
my
dude.
backyard. I don't think it killed it,
Oh,
and I think it's still okay. So I'm not sure what to
oh,
do. So I'm probably just gonna leave it and hope the
oh,
mom
okay.
comes and gets it.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. We'll
Yeah.
mourn tomorrow.
Okay, so here's some questions. What would you say? What is your favorite, like, you know how there's different historical Bigfoot events
Sure.
that have happened? What do you think what would you say your favorite is?
My favorite historical, like if we're talking pre-70s,
Yeah,
it's Ape Canyon.
totally. That's what I was thinking. Yep. Cool.
Yeah, and we've been eyeing sort of making an Ape Canyon movie for a while now, which we
Should.
I mean we've had talks with investors and all sorts of stuff about like trying to create basically a narrative film based around the Ape Canyon incident because it's been one of my favorites for a very long period of time. It's why it's
Oh,
in
wow.
episode
So
one of On the Trail of Bigfoot. So
you've got
that's definitely my favorite.
you've got people coming up outside of Kickstarter. They're like, hey, if you wanted to make this, this would be cool. Here's a blank check.
We've had talks where it was more like, would you be interested in being,
Oh, cool.
being the money
Yeah, yeah.
behind this? Because this is not
Very cool.
something where we could do that for, even Kickstarter money. Our Kickstarter is great, but if
Mhm.
you tried to create a good, movie with like good costumes and all that kind of stuff
Sure, sure.
based on the Ape Canyon incident on what we can raise on a Kickstarter, I don't think we could do it.
Fair enough.
So yeah, we're kind of looking toward doing something about Ape Canyon.
Nice.
But yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, there's a ton that I like here in Ohio. There's a story called the Norwalk Ape, which was
Okay.
this, and there was actually originally an entire section of episode 1 of On the Trail of Bigfoot that talked about the Norwalk Ape case, and I ended up cutting it out because it just
Oh,
affected
wow.
the pacing of that episode. It was only
Yep,
about 2
yep.
minutes, but it affected the pacing pretty drastically.
Totally.
But it was all, in the 30s, there was this rash of sightings in Norwalk, Ohio of this ape, like creature, this scene, and naturally culminated in a posse forming and going after it. So
As all good hunts do.
yeah. So
Right.
that's a great one too. I mean, there's Ruby Creek's great. There's a lot that I really love, and then you get into the 70s and you got Minerva and Whitehall and all that stuff that I love,
Totally.
obviously.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we went to we were out visiting my parents in north of Boston, and I talked them into. They were like, "What do you want to do when you're out here?" Like, oh, there's this museum up in Portland, Maine. We should check out. It's kind of cool, It's got like Bigfoot and stuff, and they're like, "Okay, cool." So we went on a road trip up to the International Cryptozoology Museum, and that was fantastic. They had a little Ape Canyon exhibit up there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I've
they
been
had
there.
a
Been there a couple times.
nail from it, or yeah, it's really a cool place though. Very cool. Let's see. Oh, what is your let's say favorite book regarding subject of Bigfoot? If you have one you had to recommend.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to go lofty and be like Raincoast Sasquatch or like John Green. It probably. I mean, if we're strictly on Bigfoot, it's probably Beast of Boggy Creek, Lyle's book.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that
Right,
because
right,
we
right.
worked with Lyle. I really have always liked his approach to that particular book, that book and Lizard Man especially.
Okay.
So those two have always been, a couple of my favorites. I love the way the story is told, and so yeah, it's probably that. I'm trying to think if there's something I'm forgetting because I have read a lot, and my
Mhm.
we have a little like mini library at SDM HQ. When you come into like
Oh, yeah.
the waiting area at the office, there's like
Nice.
there's like 2 bookcases and they're full of books, about Bigfoot and the paranormal and stuff like
I
that.
bet
But
Mark
that's
has a crazy library.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he donates books to the to the SDM library, so he'll just like find stuff and bring it in and put it on the shelves.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Yeah, it's probably Beast of Boggy Creek. I love Coleman's Bigfoot book though, The True Story of Apes in America.
Yeah,
Um, and it's very like basic, and I know like I feel like in some ways that book might have been the inspiration for On the Trail of Bigfoot, just because
that's
it
awesome.
it really acts as like a great primer to the whole subject for
Very cool.
someone that might not have much of a knowledge of it. So it's probably I think it's going to be Beast of Boggy Creek though.
Awesome. Let me flip that a different way too. If you, let's say, you had someone who is like, "Oh man, this Bigfoot stuff is pretty awesome," and so they're just getting into it, what would you recommend them kind of start out things with?
Yeah, that Coleman.
Same thing.
Yeah, the
Perfect.
Coleman book, and
Perfect.
I've got. I mean, I have some Green, some John Green, but I
Hmm.
weirdly haven't read like the books that sort of define him. I have read On the Trail of, or I think it's On the Track of Sasquatch or whatever, which is really just a collection of stories that he
Hmm.
collected over the years that I really love, and I think something like that could actually work more, maybe even more so than something like Coleman's book, just because I think for a lot of people that are getting, or maybe not even getting into the subject, but who know very little about Bigfoot and just have a minor interest, um, there's an idea that the subject revolves around like one or two sightings from the 50s and 60s,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and maybe
Yep.
it's just of like one creature that roams the world or
Yep.
whatever, like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, and the the it's talked about in the first episode of On the Trail of Bigfoot, but like the most intriguing thing as a rational sort of person coming to the subject for the first time, something that can make you sort of you take a second look at it maybe, would be the fact that the sightings, um, there's a pattern of character behaviors that that makes it worth that second look, because
Mm.
this is all hoaxes or misidentifications. There shouldn't be sort of a pattern of behavior, like behavior that you would attribute to something like an animal.
Oh yeah,
It
totally.
really should just
Yeah.
be, they're just people making stuff up all the time, like, but you do have these sort of like character characteristics of these things that keep popping back up, and I think that's something like Green's work could be really intriguing for someone who's just coming into it, because you would be, and I'm talking strictly about his case files, not
Okay.
necessarily like his the books where he really gets into
Hmm.
to minutia of the subject. I'm strictly talking about the like On the Track of Sasquatch and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Very cool.
So yeah, anything like that, or but I mean, either be that or Coleman's Bigfoot, the true story of apes in America. Beast of Boggy
Nice.
Creek is great as a newbie too, because it's so focused on such a singular event. But I also feel like that might be a negative in terms of like it might not get someone further into the subject of Bigfoot. They might just walk away from it thinking, well, that Falcon monster sounds pretty cool, without ever even really considering it on the larger, Bigfoot scale.
Totally. That's cool. That's some good answers to that. Thanks, man. Um, what do you think? So, um, what is the most amazing thing that's happened to you because of your, let's say, being involved with Bigfoot, or like you could even say any of your documentaries, like wow, I would never experience that or met that person if I'd never done this documentary thing.
Yeah, I mean that I have a moment on every shoot where I
Yeah,
suddenly get very introspective, and
yeah.
I wouldn't say I cry. I don't think I've had that experience yet, but I
Mm.
I like inevitably have a moment where I find myself alone, and I'm just like, wow, this is
Yeah.
pretty great. Like when we were shooting on the Trail of, especially like being up in the Olympic Peninsula,
Oh, beautiful.
up
Yep.
on the Sound and all that. I
Yep.
thought
Yep.
that was there were some moments there where I was like, this is something I never would have experienced if not for
Exactly.
these kooky subjects that people laugh at. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that, but I mean, like as I'm trying to like rack my brain for like a single moment that I can really point to. I mean, obviously there's like the whoop in the rock throw, but it wouldn't be anything like that. It wouldn't be anything paranormal. It would
Mm.
be, like in terms of like the most amazing thing, it would be like a moment where I I mean, like on the most recent trip with Zach and Jason and Luke, like those are all dudes. Luke and I were roommates for a year and a half. I've known Luke since I was like 17 years old, and Zach
Okay.
and Jason and I have all been friends since we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we laughed more than we've laughed in probably like 20 years a couple of weeks ago. So
Oh, that's
while we
awesome.
while we were working on Momo,
Very cool.
so like there were
Very
times
cool.
where I was like, I really needed this because you get so
Yep.
sort of bogged down in the editing and or just life or whatever, and so like it's cool to have those moments with your friends. So I probably it could be something like that, or I mean, on the Trail of Bigfoot had numerous because I hiked with Brandon up in the Muir Woods above San Francisco and
Oh
had
yeah,
like
yeah,
I
sure.
had those moments like 5 times where I was like I'm so
Wow.
glad I get to do this, like
Yeah,
to be
right.
out here.
That's cool.
Um, but I've loved getting the opportunity to interview uh people like Coleman and
Mm-hmm.
Kathy Strain,
Mm-hmm.
and this isn't in any way like a slight to them, but they've done interviews, so I it always comes back to witnesses for me. Like those are the
Mm.
interviews that really stand out, is like
Yeah.
interviewing, like Howie Caton or Brian Gosselin or some of those people. Like Lawrence Gray in the Mothman of Point Pleasant. Like those are
Mm.
the moments
Yep.
that really stand out. Barry Clark in Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, like more so than interviewing, some sort of paranormal investigator or author or whatever, because those guys have
Right.
done that before,
Right.
and I'm not really gonna pull anything from them. For the most part, I'm not going to pull anything from them they haven't already said 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas getting to
Yep.
talk to someone like Barry Clark or Howie Caton, they don't do this sort of thing very often. They definitely don't tell their stories over and over again.
Mm.
So, there's I could wax poetic about like about all the amazing places we've shot and like getting to be with people who are, because the craziest thing about STM and making the movies is how invested everyone is in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And how invested everyone on the crew is in it, and how invested. The perfect example is the posse scene that we were talking about from Momo, because you had, we put a call out that we wanted people to come volunteer to be part of this scene we were shooting down in Zora, Ohio, and it was going to be
Oh
cold,
wow.
and people were going to need to be down there for like 6 to 8 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be paying them, and it's not a union job, and you're
Right.
basically going to be out there in the miserable cold with us
Mm.
in the scene. And we had tons of volunteers, and we ended up with a full group of guys,
Nice.
like 25 guys walking around the woods that night. Cliff got sick and was
Oh man.
sick for like 7 days after the shoot because it was so cold, and he was in a t-shirt. Like we put him in the short sleeve shirt, and he would have to take his jacket off to shoot his scenes and then put it back on as soon as we were done shooting. He ended up getting sick, but
Oh man.
everyone had such a great time. Like anytime we experience that sort of thing where you see how excited everyone is about what we're doing and being a part of
Mm-hmm.
it, like those moments I'm always really like excited and thankful for. I guess because this is not, it might seem like not easiest, but the funnest like job you could have, and I'm not complaining about this in any way. Like it is a dream job, but it also gets like incredibly um draining, when you're like on the schedules we're on. So
Yep.
like when you can get like a bunch of people like that together who are excited, it gets me excited again.
Oh yeah.
And you get that energy again, the creative energy to put back into the project. Because when we shot that posse scene, that was on the first weekend of filming Momo, but we had spent an entire day on Friday filming, and then on Saturday we were supposed to shoot all day, and we only ended up getting 2 scenes shot, I think, and then got completely rained out, and I was
Oh
really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
discouraged about that because I knew that was going to set us back.
Yep.
So yeah, that Sunday that we shot the posse scene on was cool and really encouraging. Oh, and like we had Alexander Pedikov with us, like he showed up. So Alexander made our Champ movie with
Oh
us.
yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah,
Yep.
but we didn't get to work with Alexander on that. Like I wasn't there for the filming of Champ.
Right, right.
Um, but he was there for this, so that was really cool because like we were out filming and Alex was there. It just felt like in a way like a reunion of STM filmmaking.
Cool.
It was kind of cool. So there's those moments. Anything involved with Mothman at Point Pleasant was really like mind blowing for me. There was one morning where I walked out and found, and this wasn't even during the shooting of the movie. It was actually during the Mothman Festival that year. But I had found the plaque where they had put out, where the bridge used to be. But I was the only one out there, and there was this fog rolling in over the Ohio River, and it was like one of those moments, those nerd out.
Awesome, dude.
Sort of. There's a lot of those. I'm really rambling about this, but there's a lot of those moments where I'm just amazed by the situation we're in.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's very important, I think, to take a step back in life and just realize what you have. Be thankful for it. That's fantastic. What would you say to, let's say, like the next generation growing up right now, who are interested in searching for the, Bigfoot, monsters, fill in the blank? Like, how would you encourage them?
No, I'm really glad you said that because I had this whole talk with Cliff about some stuff over the weekend, not necessarily relating to that, but to some other stuff, like really insightful. And I think the biggest thing I'd tell kids, and this might seem hypocritical, hopefully not. Either way, like focus on the animal or the subject and not like celebrity and your name and like trying to brand yourself, and because that stuff is ruining these subjects. And I say that as someone who makes movies about these subjects, and like I guess like I might be perceived as being branded like the filmmaking guy or whatever, but like I have no problem with people being on TV and being on these shows and that kind of stuff, and in most cases like they like I'm glad they are because they're knowledgeable about the subjects or whatever. But man, like I'm also kind of sick of just seeing people getting into ufology or the paranormal or Bigfoot solely because they want to get on the next like paranormal TV show, right? or Bigfoot TV show or whatever, and it just kind of gets discouraging. Honestly, I've seen it happen because you see it happen with people you like and respect, and they change. they change as soon as they're on these shows. Like they've got this, they've got some sort of image they had to protect or whatever. And I get it. Like I totally get it. And I'm friends with a lot of people that have been on these shows, and we've been offered, to be on these shows. And I will probably at some point end up on some sort of show as a talking head or something. So I get it, and I have no issues with it. I have an issue with getting into the subjects because you think you can, because that's your motivation. Like you want to do that. I just want to be the next like big personality in the field. Like like focus on the animal, like not your entertainment value that you see yourself having.
Yeah, do it because you love it. Yeah. That's awesome. Very, very cool. I remember you talking a while about the next documentary coming up is going to be on the Bell Witch. Is that right?
It's not the next. It's
or down the road sometime.
So yeah. What it is 2019 is On the Trail of Bigfoot and Terror in the Skies and Momo, and then 2020 is we'll start off with the Mothman Legacy, which is a direct sequel to the Mothman of Point Pleasant, and then the Mark of the Bell Witch, and then On the Trail of UFOs. And more than likely, On the Trail of UFOs is going to be sort of a late 2020 release. But we'll see. We'll see if it's late 2020 or early 2020. I just don't know yet how it's coming out in that year. And then right now we're actually talking about scaling back a little bit the release schedule starting in 2021, and putting more focus into each individual title. But we'll have to see how everything plays out because we never know. We don't even know if we're going to be here in 2020. Just to be frank with you, like as an independent,
you never know.
Yeah, as an independent, you never know what's going to happen from year to year. So that we have plans in place, obviously, but we are not We're not the Travel Channel, and we don't have
Right. Yeah,
millions of
exactly.
dollars
Yeah.
to throw at this stuff.
Dude, man, the Bell Witch one, that's going to be crazy. I've seen a few things on that, and that could get pretty interesting, dude. That's going to be definitely a different, film than most people are used to, but that's some interesting subject matter, dude.
Yeah,
So,
it'll
yeah.
be it'll definitely be it'll be a departure from what we've done prior to it, because of the fact that, if nothing else, not even, I mean, discounting the fact that it's like supernatural and all that, but if you
Mm-hmm.
it's also the fact that it's a historical story. It's an old it's a story where we don't really have witnesses and things like that left. So
Sure.
if nothing else, it'll be different because of that.
So, looking forward into the UFO thing, were you thinking maybe a little out west trip to Skinwalker Ranch or something? Or
We start
we'll see.
filming. Yeah, we start filming on. I'm not going to give the exact dates, but I'll be heading to, like Vegas and Utah and
Oh,
Arizona,
wow.
and actually in the
Like
next
for real?
in the next like 4 weeks I'll be out there.
Oh,
So
jeez.
and that'll be, like, I loved the experience of making On the Trail of Bigfoot. I did not love the experience of being sort of on camera
Mm,
in On the Trail of Bigfoot. It just felt weird
okay.
to me. So I will be on camera somewhat in On the Trail of UFOs, but I'm not sort
Hmm.
of the primary character. I'm gonna put Shannon Legros as like our sort
Nice.
of our
Yep.
lead in that. Her and I have been friends now for like 5 years, and I've always wanted to get, something going where she could be where she could step in front of the camera. So I think that'll
Very
be
cool.
where she sort of finds her place, is in the front of the camera on the Trail of UFOs.
Yep. No, Shannon has some amazing content. And I'm trying to set up a podcast with her in the future. We've been chatting a little bit back and forth, trying to set something up. But no, she's great, man. She's a great host and content creator, definitely. Oh man, this has been fantastic. I just want to really thank you taking the time out of your busy day and talking to my listeners about stuff, all your documentaries and some new stuff about Momo. And um, can you so you've got your stuff so many different places, like DVD Media and Amazon and iTunes and whatever. Like, what would
Yeah.
you say if someone wanted to check out your stuff? What's the best way for them to do that, but also to support you at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to support us, the best way to support us is to like buy the DVDs through
Right.
through the website, or
Totally.
Vimeo. We get 100% of, or 90% of what we make on Vimeo, which is nice.
Hmm.
We don't sell much on there, but that's a great way. That's a great way to
Right.
support us. Amazon. I mean, people are going to gravitate to Amazon because like most of our stuff's free on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
We get very little from Amazon Prime, and Amazon continues to sort of screw content creators.
I don't agree with that, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. They actually just changed all the payout stuff again, which we're waiting to see how bad that's going to hit us. But yeah, like we're all over the place. iTunes and Google Play and
Oh wow.
and obviously that's not all our movies. The bulk of
Hmm.
our movies are available on Amazon, Vimeo on demand, and the newer ones are appearing on VidiSpace, which is run by my buddy Elizabeth Saint. So
Yep.
so yeah, if you're looking to support us, the DVDs are great, and you get like the bonus content, which is usually like like some sort of making of featurette where you can see us running around like idiots with cameras.
But if you want the good stuff, you got to get in on that Kickstarter, guys, because I've got a Small Town Monsters hat coming. That's gonna
Yeah,
be legit, dude.
yeah, those are going to be great. We actually have them. They're waiting to be sent.
Oh
We
man, I love it.
as soon as Momo stuff is done, that all the like final batch of Kickstarter rewards go out. So it's been such an insane year because of the fact that we had so many backers in the campaign. Like
Hmm.
I think it was like 450 backers or something, which is crazy for us. Um, So it's been a little more, not delayed, but it's been staggering the rewards more than we usually have to, just because you're still waiting on like some of the backers to send in their info and stuff so we can get their t-shirt sizes.
Oh yeah, totally.
So yeah, but there were so many rewards in this year's campaign. It's insane.
There's a
So,
lot, dude.
next year's gonna be great, man. We have
Really?
we have a 5-year retrospective book, like a coffee table book being done.
Oh no.
It's mostly going to be written by Mark Matsky, and then it's going to have like interviews with all of us, and all this like behind the scenes photos and stuff like that.
Dude.
So it's going to be
Fantastic.
next year's going to be awesome because that's the official like 5-year anniversary.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Also, you guys have the Monsteropolis podcast, correct?
Yes, yeah, we missed 2 weeks in a row, which was our first time to miss anything, just because of the shooting of Momo, and then Mark had a family issue he had to attend to last week, so we missed 2 weeks in a row, but we start up I think Thursday of this week, and we're gonna jump into some more conspiracy stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I was driving Uber, listening to the Black helicopter episode, and just the way I was like, oh boy.
Yeah,
I was not expecting the helicopter to go that way, but yeah, it was very, very interesting.
yeah. Were you listening to that while driving Uber over the speakers?
Oh no, sorry. So what I do is like when I am actually driving customers,
Yes.
I just put on Apple Music or whatever. But like when I'm just trying to find someone, I'll listen to podcasts. So
Because if you were playing that after picking up a customer, that'd be amazing.
That'd be a total 5-star for sure.
Yeah,
no, I
definitely.
want to get one of those Bigfoot air fresheners so I can start to have conversations about Bigfoot with customers, and yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But
Cool.
anything else you would like to maybe send like a plug for listeners, or anything you just want to pass on?
See Terror in the Skies comes out on
Totally.
Friday, and I'm proud of it. It's like it's one of the more Seth Breedlove-ian movies that we've done. So it's kind of schmaltzy in that way, but we're really proud of that one. It looks fantastic. Like the cinematography.
Oh, it really does. Yeah.
Great. And so we're really, really excited to see how audiences respond to it.
The story at the beginning with the little kid, and it kind of has a Spielberg feel to it. That's fantastic. And then I love how you guys focus on Midwest towns, like the older Midwest towns. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Living out here in Iowa, I can really appreciate that.
Awesome.
But dude, thanks again for hopping on with us for a few minutes tonight. And guys, go check out Seth's stuff, and have a great night, Seth.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Again, thanks to Seth Breedlove for spending some time with us tonight, talking about all sorts of really cool stuff. As we said at the end of the interview, check out Seth's documentaries if you haven't. They are phenomenal. Again, you can check us out over at Bigfoot Society on Instagram. We got a great community over there, getting bigger all the time. Also, subscribe to this podcast. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a review. And we will see you in the next episode. All right. Keep being squatchy out there, guys. I really got to get a good tagline. We'll talk to you later, guys. Have a good one.